Alrighty, folks, welcome. It is 5 p.m. and on the 21st, and we're going to go ahead and open up for business for a regular session. Roll call, please vote, Tina. Marg.
Okay. Ms. Benton, I'm here. Mr. Martinez,
Here.
Ms. Moran, Mr. Munoz,
Here.
Mr. Pereira, Ms. Smith,
We don't have a quorum. Or do we?
We do.
Yeah, we do.
We have a quorum. We have
Quorum.
four.
Right, we do. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that roll call vote. Let's go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Go ahead and lead it. Follow me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
The flag
of the United
of the
States
United
of
States of
America,
America,
And to
to
the
the republic
stand
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with
Liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. So you have to bear with me here. I'm looking for a motion in a second to approve our agenda. Is there any changes on it, Dr. Marshall?
No change.
Okay,
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Go ahead and second that.
okay. I've got a motion on the floor to approve our agenda by trustee Benton and a second by trustee Munoz. Roll call vote, Tina?
Ms. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Ms. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Munoz,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Yes.
and Ms. Smith. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Our agenda's been approved. Moving on to new business. The first item is a study session. Who's got that one?
I think this is
It's Mr. Han. He's going to do a study session. Ryan Han. Ryan, go for it.
Okay, Ryan, you're on.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to go ahead and get going on this. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start the show. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Hahn, and I am the principal consultant and owner of Strategic School Consultants. And I have been engaged with the district since I believe last October when I came to work with Dr. Marshall and Amir regarding a routing efficiency study. A little bit about who I am, since I have not had the privilege of meeting all of you yet. I am a longtime director, transportation, facilities, operations, capital projects director at various districts on the West Coast, and have been consulting for the past 7 years to help districts solve complex change management initiatives, reorganizations, and engaging the public and trying to facilitate some solutions for student transportation and just general facility operations initiatives. So I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we've been working on that were approved over the course of my engagement with the district, and also kind of some next steps on where we're at with some progress. Like we're gonna report out some really good progress, and then I had a really good meeting with the principals in August to kind of lead into where we're going with the state mandate of Senate Bill 328 and the later school start. So I have about a 10 to 12 minute presentation to share with you. And then I'm happy to entertain any questions. Do we have any questions prior to me starting? Okay. So just quickly, just to welcome an introduction, overview of the engagement of strategic school consultants with Los Banos Unified. I'm going to talk a little bit about the heavy lift of the technology integration that we were just completed this month in the Transportation Department. The Senate Bill 328 mandate, what is that? Why is that pertain to Los Banos Unified? And then we're going to talk about a little bit about our plan for an interim management placement with the resignation of the current transportation supervisor. One of the things that brought us, myself and my technical team, to Los Banos Unified was the need to figure out who rides the bus, who qualifies for bus service, and kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of the routing efficiency in the district. So we were able to kind of look through all of your data, all of your routes. I'm an expert on all of your routes. I know where they all go. I know who's going where at what time. And there was definitely a need to discuss how we were going to take that data and move it to creating a bell time model, which we're going to talk about tonight, that adheres to Senate Bill 328, which basically stipulates that high school can start no earlier than 8:30 a.m. and junior high no earlier than 8 a.m. So these are your schools listed on this slide, and your total bus riders around 3,400, just to give you an idea of how many students every day in your community ride the bus. We talked about determining eligibility because when we're working through,
Ryan?
Yes,
Could you go back to that slide for a second?
you bet.
Could you explain the headings there, list from early November bus? Could you explain what those mean?
Yeah, so the list from early November is a list that we received from the Transportation Department of who they indicated was eligible for transportation. Then we had a bus rider list of total riders, and we compared that against what was in the student information system. So what we found was that according to your new boundaries that were implemented last year, or the year before, only 1,678 students actually qualified according to the board policy of the per mile eligibility requirement. But the district is transporting far more students in that because of some pretty unsafe walk areas and along your main arterials for students to get to schools. Does that help qualify that a little bit?
It did. Thank you. So the early November list is not actually the number of riding. The number of riding is the middle list. The
number that the Transportation Department is seeing on their buses is 3,421.
Okay, cool.
Not all of them are riding all the time, but those are the potentials that have stepped foot on the bus that we're creating bus passes for. Okay.
Thank you.
So you have some different eligibility requirements in your board policy based upon an address and grade level placement. And those are kind of how we use that data to determine eligibility for students that actually need a ride. Because whenever school districts change boundaries, there's a definite need for excessive communication around, okay, well, you used to ride the bus, but do you still ride the bus? And a lot of people don't want to tell people no, which is completely understandable. We want kids to get to school and become educated, but we have to have some fidelity to the system. So we refer back to what the current board policy is. That's how we got that 1,678 number. Now, the district is very generous in allowing students who have an unsafe condition in the district to catch a ride, which is what most school districts do if they have the resources and their ability to transport students. Part of our earlier work identified some of those hotspot areas because we needed to know and understand the community very well before we decided to start implementing new bus route schemes for next year for Senate Bill 328. So when we are going into this process, it's a very collaborative process. We actually engage principals, which I've already met with principals over this issue and other issues that we were already working through on the technology integration. We start engaging parents. We start providing updates to administration, who provides updates to the board about the collaboration and the feedback that we're receiving. Because whenever you move bell times, there's a hot button there for many people, whether it's around childcare, whether it's around making sure that students at multiple buildings have rides coordinated together, and many different issues arise out of this. One of the things that we identified while working with your transportation administrators and your assistant superintendent of business services was that there was a lot of technology lacking to make data-driven decisions in the department. So the board approved I think a few months ago, we started down this path to implement a bunch of technology into your transportation department, which included an automated routing system. Also included GPS capability services on all your school buses. So now we know where all the Los Banos Unified School buses are without having to call and reach out to them. Implemented syncing the student information system with the routing software, incorporating that with a program called Bike Curve, which allows the routing program and Bike Curve, which is a daily dispatch program software, and the GPS software to all talk together. So it tells us when the bus starts in the morning, when the bus leaves the yard, when it gets to its stops. That's a lot of data that we need in order to build effective bus routes going forward with new bell times. The whole purpose behind this is an opportunity to provide access and reutilize the school bus system. You want to reutilize buses over and over and over again, which is within a time span, within bell times of buildings, to be able to reuse that bus over and over to pick up students, to reduce the number of buses that you have on the road in totality. That's the theory behind using this data to make data-driven decisions. We are working to finalize a formalized transportation registration process, which will go out this spring for students to be able to register. And then we were able to communicate with them on where we want them to go to the bus, which helps us even loads and maximize loads. So we talk about our work with leadership and planning. I'm a leadership coach, and I work with transportation directors and administrators across the nation. I speak at national conferences on how do you professionally manage your system with the constraints that you have, and with staffing shortages and all sorts of things we're facing right now in this industry. So I've been working with Estella and Tom Worthy to manage departmental change. We've met with the drivers, we've met with the bargaining unit president, and providing mentorship and coaching, managing service growth due to bell time constraints. There are issues that are coming up from principals that we need to hear from them so that students aren't chronically late to the buildings, which sometimes happens when, hey, we need this student picked up over here, the bus isn't there, that we have to send the bus, and then the bus starts becoming late to all of its stops and locations. And then we're creating rolling out a communication plan to provide support to the system, and also to provide a greater level of transparency and credibility in that department as we move forward with this big change. We do know that right now we do have concerns around eligibility requirements, who thinks they're eligible to ride the bus, and also the possibility of overloaded buses because of that. Students catching ride to school and not having a really clear process around that. So we have built a different routing schema already to kind of build into our routing efficiency study, to find ways to offer greater service and reutilize the buses over and over again, which is a reutilization of current assets. We're going to be coordinating, like we talked about, your stakeholders in regards to Senate Bill 328 and how that impact is going to affect your community, and provide expertise and guidance to the leadership staff to buy in and talk about the implementation of technology and new route sets. We've been working with them. We will continue to be working with them. And then we want to create systems to track and monitor high-level transportation customer service variables, because this is a customer service piece for your district. And if transportation is like a utility, it just needs to be on. People call when it's not on. We know that, but what is the level of service and how can it be better? You have an opportunity when we move bell times to fix some longstanding issues and delays. We talked a little bit about what is Senate Bill 328. It was passed down in 2019 by the legislature, and it talks about that high schools cannot start their attendance counting period of the day before 8:30 a.m. So other districts that we're doing this in, they have 0 period before that, but they're not counting that towards their official start of first period. Same with junior high schools, cannot start earlier than 8 a.m. When you look at this from your school district's lens, you know that some of your high schools don't adhere to this. That's why we're involved, and we're starting to put the puzzle pieces together, because when you move one, you have to move the others so that the students who rely on transportation to school, which is roughly a third of your student body, have to be able to get there in a reasonable amount of time without hiring a whole bunch more drivers, buying a bigger bus fleet, etc. This is another slide right from the state legislature webpage. And briefly, the thing I want to really hit on is the school day piece. It talks about that's when you start accounting for your attendance. And then July 1, 2022 is the deadline for the implementation, which is next July. When we're working through this process, this is a collaborative process where we lead virtual town halls. When it's not in COVID, we go out in the communities and we meet with people. And we do this work all the time, but in this particular case, this is a mandate. So this isn't like a negotiable thing with the district and the community. We have to do this, but what we can do is we can listen to your customers, your parents, your staff, your students. I love to engage students in this process as well. It does impact them. About what are their considerations? How do they have access to catch the bus? From an equity perspective, are your affluent areas in your district are you offering the same levels of access and bus stop coverage in areas of where your students of greater need are? So we're looking at how we build a system equitably across your district. You're looking at, in totality, your school start and end times, your childcare impact on families, the logistics to provide education, and other operational services such as breakfast, other food service considerations. Those all come into play and are worked on as we work through this. And then of course, soliciting feedback from your customers, which we just talked about, which are your parents. And there's several ways that we do that. The district will set up an email box where people can just email in, and it'll be Senate Bill 328 at your district's domain name. We will offer virtual town halls. I will be holding other staff meetings and other various meetings. We have a task force that Dr. Marshall has set up, and I will be facilitating that and leading that process through. So no pun intended, but where will this bus stop? Because we're almost out of time on our presentation. New bell times and routes, completely new routes and bell times for next year. The ability to track buses on routes for on-time performance. All the bus stop information is loaded in the student information system, so people don't have to call transportation. The parent will have the information. The parent will have an app that tracks the bus. It tells them when the bus is coming to their stop, and it gives an ETA with the GPS information. It tells them when their child's getting off and on. Also, where the students have bus passes, they're called Z passes. It tells them we know exactly who's on the bus. When they scan to get on, we know exactly who scans to get off and where they got off at. So if somebody's calling looking for somebody, we're really creating an environment, a more modern environment of safety on the buses. We can tell you exactly who's on your buses and where they're at. And probably one of the greatest things that Senate Bill 328 offers, although it can be inconvenient to folks, is it solves longstanding systemic logistic issues. So as schools are built, as boundaries are changed, it's very difficult to move bell times in a system unless there's a mandate. You can't get people to agree. And so this is an opportunity to really start streamlining things and to build future growth, kind of a cushion into the transportation system, which will allow it to absorb more special program shuttles and different needs across the district that maybe couldn't have been done without adding more personnel and more buses to your fleet. We're proposing to hire an interim transportation supervisor through June 30th. That person will work very closely with me to align the process and practices in the department to the current trends of the industry, create a transparent and positive culture in the department. That's definitely something that is beneficial in any department, is to build that trust and that communication. Transportation is a very busy department, and sometimes that's something that's needed at a higher level, communication. And intertwine effective leadership with complicated change management initiative of Senate Bill 328. This is a heavy lift, and it's a heavy lift in any district I do it in. And it needs to have a very close hand on how do we justify our results at the end to show that we use data-driven decision-making, and also that we were very much inclusive in our approach to get as much stakeholder feedback as we could, not only from parents and staff in the schools, but also the drivers. They know where they're going every day. We really rely on a lot of information that doesn't necessarily get brought up to the public, and they're very helpful in this process. And our last piece of this at the very end of this, when we're finished, is we will attract a high quality department head for the transportation department who doesn't have to own all of this complex change. They can start when it's done and then just roll forward with it. So having said all that, do you have, can I answer any questions for you?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ryan, for your presentation. And does anybody else have any questions for Ryan at this time?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So how do you give each child a bus pass? How is that distributed? And also twofold, is the idea to pick up the, say the junior high first and deliver them and then go to the high school students, or?
Yeah, those are two really good questions. So the bus pass process actually, I believe, was started the year before I was engaged at the district. And it wasn't used in the same way it'll be used now, because there was no data infrastructure on the back end to be able to tell the transportation department who was actually on the bus. So the bus passes, we will roll out a process where they will be distributed in the beginning of the year, likely at the school, and their route number will be printed on them along with their picture. And that also helps school staff identify what buses the students go on. We can actually put their stop information on there. Sometimes that's problematic as students move throughout the year. However, that's the primary premise of the bus pass. It's where is the student at, and how can we help everybody know when that student's at school what bus they need to get back on in the afternoon, including the driver. When they scan that pass, when they step up the bus stairs, it'll give a tone saying that it's accepted. It'll give a different tone if they're on the wrong bus. So it doesn't mean that we'll deny a student a ride, but we can definitely start solving maybe some problems before they arise. If the bus is at the school in the afternoon saying, hey, I need some help, this student's pass is not engaged for this route, can we look this up and put them on the right bus before they go home? So the second piece is the junior high time and the high school time. There's many ways to slice that puzzle, and that's where the task force work's going to come in. There's going to be conversation about, there is in every district, who goes first. And one of the major goals that I have, and it's worked well in my experience, is I don't like buses picking up students before the 7 o'clock hour, if it's at all possible. And there are kids who get on the bus before that now to get to school. And so what we do is we look at the puzzle and we look at the logistics. In your particular district, you run kindergarten through 12th grade on your rural routes to a certain point. And then what happens is they start dropping at your rural elementaries right now, like Charleston and Volta, I believe. And then they start picking up more secondary age kids as they're in town. So what we have to figure out is if the high schools are all moving to a staggered time around the 8:30 time or later, then how do we fit the junior highs in to where that we can still get everybody K-12 to a certain point? Because it's not cost effective to run the buses out of town twice, all the way out to the far reaches, but it is effective to run them circular in a close proximity. So it's those, what we do is we take all the data that we collect on what the feasibility of getting the bus to all of those locations. Then we plot it on what it's called a bell time model, and we provide the district with options. So we don't come up with the final solution. We come up with options saying, this is what it looks like if the junior high starts first or last. This is what it looks like pushing elementary back as far as it can, but still allowing parents to get to work. Those kinds of considerations come in. So that's what you can expect from me and my team at the end of this when we're going forward to recommend bell times to the board.
Thank you.
Did that help?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Ryan.
Sure.
It appears this is going to increase efficiency. It's going to increase security for the student. I'm
Yes.
wondering if it's going to increase participation, bringing more students to ride the bus, which would take, in my opinion, more vehicles off the road going to the campuses.
Yeah, so we work through that issue in a lot of places. Sometimes, especially in the state of California, funding was cut to the transportation departments in like 08, 09, the big recession.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that's totally outside the district's control. But what it did was it made parents reliant on themselves to get their kids safely to school. What this does is if the district can reutilize the buses enough times, it will increase participation of students being able to ride the bus. To give you an example, I've already been contacted by some principals that want some students picked up that have to walk past unsafe things to get to school, homeless encampments, many different things. So if we can build the system to where there's enough of a cushion between the bell times, the bus can drop. The bus could even go back and get one more load of kids for that elementary school. We do see an increased participation. So what that does is it increases your access for students.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a possibility in your district with how it's set up.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
So Ryan,
Yes.
for approximately 400 years, there's been the story of the buses dictate what time we start, what time we get out. Are we going to hear this?
So this is the story of the tail wagging the dog. Yes. So, but what has not happened in a lot of districts, and I can't speak to yours because I don't have the history. What we want to do is figure out a way to come up with a solution that doesn't cost more money to run transportation, provides more students an opportunity to ride, but also accomplishes the least, accomplishes the move to the mandate with the least amount of impact on the community. I mean, the community was going to want to win out of this somehow. So if that means that more kids get to ride the bus, or there's many different ways to slice this pie in terms of when I bring you recommendations and I bring Dr. Marshall recommendations for the board, there's going to be different scenarios in there which you guys will be able to choose from. But in this particular case, the whole reason why my company is engaged with several districts in this process is, one, nobody wants to take on moving the bell times. It's not a popular thing to do. But two, they need somebody that can provide something positive for the community if we're going to move them. And I know that the safest place for kids and my own kids is on a school bus, not walking to school, if we can make that happen in terms of the eligibility requirements that are established by the board. And so to give you an example, providing more stops in areas, that takes minutes to stop, but it keeps kids from walking in groups of 20 to major arterials. But yes, this is a collaborative effort for the tail to wag the dog, so to speak, without transportation just doing a hard set. It's actually going to be able to listen to some people that may have some pretty good input that may have never been heard, because you're right. People do complain that, you know, the buses can't get here. The buses can't get here. We can't have school end at this time. Well, I think everybody's going to get to learn why that is and what options could be. And I think the process of teaching the why in this is just as important as the solution.
So I thank you very much for that. I have friends in districts all over the state, and a lot of the districts say that some of their elementary schools start as late as 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Is that something that might be happening in our district?
You know,
with this time change?
So your district has something unique that other districts don't have, and you have a combined ridership on your buses, meaning that a lot of districts that's happening in, they have like a high school tier, a junior high tier, and then an elementary tier, and maybe even another elementary tier. And what I mean by tiers, those are bus runs to get kids to school. Las Banas is limited because you have kindergarten through 12th grade coming from the far reaches, and we don't want them on the bus over an hour. So the totality of the start time gap can't be too large, or those students are on the bus too long. Make sense?
Very much so. That's
yeah.
I just because I know that would be uprising big time, you know. From a lot of people. And so, I mean, that would be a difficult thing to do.
It's actually, in my experience, I try to have the least impact on the elementary schools with this, because the mandate covers the secondary schools. So what we try to do is build a system where they're compliant without changing. The majority of your riders are elementary students. So, and those people are actually trying to maneuver to get from that building to drop their children to the junior high to drop children, and then to the high school to drop children. There's a lot of factors that go into the parents' day. If we can build some like reassurance and maybe some better credibility in this transportation system, and I'm not saying that it's not credible, we need to sell this process. We need people to feel comfortable that there's a stop going to be in a safe enough location near their home, if we can do it, that more students can go and access. That's providing that access piece that's been overlooked in a lot of places. All the bus routes that I deal with in the state of California, and when I say all, I mean 99%, are still from the budget cut era. And so they just try to do it on the cheap to provide the basic service to get kids to school, because that money was needed desperately in the classroom. And we all understand that and can respect that. My hope with this process is that I don't have to spend more money or make a recommendation that spends more money. I can just use the same people over and over to get it done.
Well, we do have encroachment from transportation in the general fund. So that's always a concern. It's always a concern. So I have a question, but it's probably not for you, Ryan. It's probably for Mark and Amir. So in Ryan's slides, I noticed that it said that we are going to be hiring an interim transportation supervisor.
It'd probably be something that not hiring will be provided by Ryan. His company is going to provide one. So it's going to be part of his contract.
Oh, it's not going to be one of our employees.
No, he's going to provide that service.
Oh, okay, cool.
Right.
Thank you. Appreciate the questions, answers.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I answered them well.
You did.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you, Ryan. For
Thank you
your
so much for having
information. It was very informative. We'll be moving on to item 4B, new job description, Director of Student Health Services. Is that yours, Dr. Ritchie?
Actually, Dr. Calzadias.
Actually, this
Oh,
one
Dr.
is
Calzadias.
mine.
It's all yours.
Yes, this is a new job description that's being presented. It's actually a unique opportunity to combine two positions that we were not able to fill. The coordinator 2 of health services was a position that we went out with advertised 3 separate times. We actually thought we had found a candidate, and then ultimately she did not accept the position. And so the other position was the Director of COVID Recovery and Special Projects. That was the second position that the board had approved with the specialized funding at the beginning of the year that we also did not fill. So what you have in front of you is a job description that combines those two positions, keeping a focus on the systemic health practices across the district that are so desperately needed right now. And so it's recommended that the board approve the Director of Student Health Services position and job description.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Calzadias?
Yeah, a couple of questions, Dr. Calzadias. It says in the job description that they're going to schedule, assign, and oversee the school nurses. So are the school nurses being taken out of the special services department?
The special services, the answer to that would be yes, but the coordinator 2 of health services actually had oversight of the nurses. While they were under the special services umbrella, the person that was in that position had that oversight.
So then they'll have nothing to do with special services anymore then?
That would be correct.
Special services can deal with special ed and
with special ed and focus in those areas
yeah,
right now that need attention.
yes, I mean, basically, I'm asking, you're basically taking something off of that director's position's responsibilities.
That would be correct.
Okay, because I know that's kind of crazy at times. Thank you. I had another question and I forgot, so thank you. If I remember, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I have
Anybody
a
else?
question for you, Tammy. I do have one.
Mhm.
My concern right now is the salary. Nurses are picking and choosing pretty much where they want to go and what they want to do. Right now, with COVID, they're making a lot more than what we're advertising. I'm not saying to increase it. I'm sure you did a salary analysis, but you might have to offer a bonus to make it more attractable.
I appreciate that. And I would have to come back to the board to get that approval. Creating a director and increasing this position or elevating this position up to a director did increase the salary significantly from the coordinator 2 of health services. The applicant that we had previously, we thought for the coordinator 2 health services was coming from a healthcare environment and had administrative experience and would have been very interested in the position at the time had it been a director position. So I'm hoping that individual is still out there and sees this position and the interest is still there. But I do believe that this will appeal to someone that has both that healthcare background as well as the administrative background, which we feel like are two areas right now that are needed to coordinate these systemic practices.
And to kind of piggyback on what Ms. Smith said, would just basically the hours and the number of days worked per year help to offset some of that? I know they're making more money, but you're putting in a lot less time and a lot less hours, and you're not going to get called to come back and do surgery late at night. So
Right.
I mean, does that make it a little more attractive? I don't know.
I think it does. I think that anyone that selects this position will definitely do so as a quality of life move. I mean, hospital work and healthcare work is hard work, and it's a lot of hours. And with the shortages in healthcare, I know there's a lot of mandatory holdovers right now in a lot of the hospitals. I know
my daughter gets that lucky call often. So it's tough. And so hopefully the person that selects this or that would accept this position would definitely be looking at a quality of life move.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? Okay. If there's no other questions, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the Director of Student Health Services position and the accompanying job description.
Go ahead and make that a motion.
Second.
I got a motion by Trustee Munoz and a second by, was that Trustee Pereira?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
To approve. Roll call vote, Tina?
Ms. Benton,
Yes.
Ms. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Munoz,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
and Mr. Martinez.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it's been approved. We're going to go on to item 5, the consent calendar. And is there any changes or pulls to the consent calendar?
I'd like to pull 5A1 for clarifying questions.
Okay. Okay, other than that poll, is there any other polls on that? Anybody else? Okay, we'll go ahead, Trustee Pereira, and what was your,
We need to make a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
okay, I'm looking for a motion then to approve the consent calendar aside from the poll on item 5A1.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar with the changes.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar with a poll of item 5A1. Looking for, I've got a motion by Trustee Smith and a second by Trustee Benton to approve. All in favor, say aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Martinez, it doesn't say on there, but I do need to do a roll call vote since it's Zoom. I omitted that on the agenda, but we do need a roll call vote.
Okay, that's all right.
Okay, Ms. Benton?
Go ahead, roll call vote, Tina.
Okay, Ms.
Yeah.
Benton?
Yes.
Ms. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Munoz?
Yes.
Mr. Pereira?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the consent calendar has been approved. Going back to item 5A1. Trustee Pereira, you had a...
Yeah, I have some clarifying questions here on this. So looking over the contract, on item 2.1.1, staffing and related matters, the last sentence says personnel matters above informal redirection must be handled by the district. So who will be the person that will handle these personnel matters? I'm also asking who not only, that sounds more like discipline issues, but also how about evaluations? Who's going to be doing that for that department?
It's going to be the Director of FOT, Tom Worthy.
Okay, all right. So he's not doing them now.
No.
So he's going to be added to that. It's going to be added to what he's doing. Okay.
Yes.
And the other thing, well, not the other thing, but one more thing, 2.1.2, we don't have a Los Banos Unified School District Board of Directors. I think it should be Board of Trustees.
Okay.
Third line there.
All right.
In the contract, I don't know. We're not the Board of Directors. Minor, just picky. And also when we get down to page 14, I guess that is the second to the last page, on the payment schedule, it has 10 monthly payments of $23,700 beginning in September. But yet we're approving this contract, on September, what is it, 21st? I don't even know what day of the week it is. Is it 21st? 21st, yes. So, are we paying them $23,000 for 1 week?
It's going to get prorated. It'll be prorated.
It'll be
It'll be
prorated.
pro-
So really, the September 23,000 is not going to be 23,000.
No, it'll be prorated. Yes.
Okay. All right. I was, the way it says here, it is, basically 23,000 for a week. That's good pay.
I'll make the
Right.
change.
You're making good money.
Yeah, that'll be changed when the person actually begins working. So it may be actually very few days for September.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for that clarification. That's all I have.
Hey, thank you, Trustee.
With that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item 5A1 Strategic School Consultants contract.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Trustee Pereira and a second by Trustee Smith. Roll call vote, Tina?
Miss Benton,
Yes.
Miss Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Munoz,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Yes.
Miss Smith,
Yes.
and Mr. Martinez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been approved. If anybody else doesn't have any other questions or comments, we'll go ahead and adjourn our regular session at 5:46 p.m. and be looking to start our closed session at 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.